Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're here with tiny little Twig today. Twig is an opal Rex rabbit, and he is only 4 weeks old. So he is very tiny. By the way, if you're getting a new rabbit and it's only 4 weeks old and this big, it's not ready to leave mama yet. So it's too young. But we're going to sit here with Twig and we are going to talk about an issue that is a big deal. Okay? And a lot of people don't talk about it until it happens, so they're unprepared for the reality of this particular medical condition. Now, if you've ever had rabbits, you'll know that they're cute, fluffy, and full of personality. But when it comes to their gut health, their tummies, they are also incredibly delicate creatures. Okay? They are freaking delicate and also leaving. They are delicate little bugs who absolutely want to crawl in your hair and snuggle, and we're just going to let them. But they do have delicate tummies. Okay? Today we're diving into a common and potentially dangerous issue. Coccidia in rabbits. Okay? Especially in young rabbits, but any rabbit of any age can end up with coccidia. If you hear chewing, it's because he's chewing on the mic. Just so you know. So, what is coccidia? How do you spot it? What do you do about it? And most importantly, how can you prevent it from cropping up in the first place? Let's talk about it because it is an important issue. And if you're not aware that this can happen to your rabbits, you'll miss the warning signs. You won't know what to do. And when you eventually end up with coccidia in your rabbitry, you're going to flounder. Okay? Being prepared is half the battle. So, what is coccidia? Well, it's a parasite. Okay? And many different animals can get coccidia. It's most common in chickens. You hear a lot of chicken groups talk about, my chickens have coccidia. They've got bloody poops. But coccidia, different types of coccidia, can affect your dogs. It can affect, yes, your chickens and your ducks and your tiny little rabbits. Okay? This is something that is not uncommon. The coccidia parasite itself lives in the intestines and bile ducts of rabbits. There are several species of coccidia that can infect rabbits. Not all of them are transmissible to other species. Okay, some types of coccidia are species specific. Some types of coccidia can jump all over the place. Hi. Hi, Twig. We like Twig. Twig is here to stay. So, it's a super common thing, especially in young or newly weaned rabbits. The most frustrating part is that some rabbits can carry coccidia without showing any outward signs and still shed it in their poop. So it spreads really easily, especially if you don't know who the carrier is. Lovely. A disease that could potentially kill your rabbits being spread by the poop of a rabbit who's showing no symptoms. That's fun to narrow down. Now, coccidia is transmitted through the fecal-oral route. Yes, rabbits nibbling on something contaminated with infected poop. And then the life cycle of coccidia begins. Coccidia thrives in warm, damp, and dirty conditions, which makes hygiene a top priority. Like a lot of things we talk about on this channel, hygiene ends up being one of the greatest things you can do to prevent it from happening at all. And my hair is all over the place right now. The humidity is doing weird things right now, so everyone's hair is looking a little weird. Hey, look at that money. So, hygiene is so incredibly important with so many of these different things we talk about. That's why we scrub water bowls, rotate pens, and every time a rabbit soils their hay, rabbit keepers get all annoyed because you know what? It is annoying because every time the hay is pooped or peed on, there's the potential for disease. Yeah, it's so much fun. And without fail, they are going to poop on their hay. So this is why we complain about it so much, because pooping on the hay can contaminate the hay and somebody else could get coccidia, even though you don't have coccidia you might be carrying it and not susceptible to the symptoms, and you're going to pass it to someone who is susceptible to symptoms. It's a whole thing. This is why pooping on the hay is so annoying, and why you see so many rabbit keepers trying to keep the hay up on the wall and stuff in feeders, because they don't want the rabbits to poop on it. There's a reason. So, what do you look out for with coccidia? First, you're going to look for soft, mushy, or watery poops. They should be nice, normal pellets. If they're not, you've got a problem. You're going to look and see if any of your rabbits are lethargic. Okay, you're going to look for loss of appetite. A rabbit with coccidia is not going to want to eat. Bloating. Okay, a rabbit with coccidia is probably bloated, but they'll also lose weight. They'll have a rough or a dull coat because they don't have enough nutrients or enough energy in their body to devote to directing energy towards the coat condition. And sometimes you'll have sudden death in young kids. If all of a sudden your 3-4 week old baby bunnies are suddenly dying, yes, it could be weanling enteritis, but it could also be coccidia. Okay? It's important. It can look like plain old diarrhea, but coccidia progresses really quickly. If one of your rabbits seems off, don't wait. Even if it's not coccidia, diarrhea in rabbits is always worth acting fast, so do something about it. Diarrhea in rabbits is not something you can just let take its course, and if it is coccidia, it's even worse. Right? So, diagnosing coccidia. Well, the gold standard is to have your vet run a fecal float test. They'll check for coccidia under the microscope, and they are the most accurate at diagnosing the strain of coccidia. But on the farm, if you've seen it before, so we've had coccidia rip through before, and it sucks. But if you've seen it before, you might recognize the symptoms, and you might be able to start treatment fast if you have the treatment available. Especially if several rabbits are showing symptoms, because coccidia is one of those things that it's not usually just one rabbit, it's usually a whole group of them sharing space, because that's how it's passed, right? So if a whole bunch of your babies or a whole bunch of your rabbits are all of a sudden sick with all the same symptoms, and all of those symptoms match coccidia, there's a good chance. And if you have the treatments on hand, you might be able to start the treatments. Okay? But a pro tip here is always have a vet on call that you can give a ring. Even if you're doing so, even if you do the day-to-day stuff yourself, sometimes you have major issues crop up like coccidia and you need a vet. So have a vet on call that sees your rabbits once a year, so that if something happens, you can get assistance. Look for a rabbit-savvy vet in your area, either someone who deals with exotics, because rabbits are considered exotics, or check your local farm vets. Here, our farm vets are probably the most knowledgeable when it comes to rabbits, because we have large rabbit farms, and the exotics are actually not as good at treating rabbits. So talk to farm vets. Some of them might be really knowledgeable about rabbits. Okay? And when you are rushing to the vet, grab some poop. I know it sounds weird, but grab some poop, throw it in a baggie. It lets the vet run a fecal right away. I know it sounds weird, but it's normal for owners of rabbits to bring a poop sample. Grab some, throw it in a baggie, okay? As fresh as you can manage, chuck it in a baggie. They can test that. That will be the best way for them to tell if your bunnies, and not just the one you're bringing in, but all of them, have coccidia. So you've been to the vet, gotten your diagnosis. What are your treatment options? Well, there's a few of them. Usually it's an anti-coccidial medication. So you might have sulfa drugs like Albin or another sulfa drug. These are okay. They work decent. They're not my first choice, but for some people they work really well. I prefer Baycox. This is used in a lot of different animals, and it seems to work really well on rabbits. Remember, not all medications for other animals work well on rabbits. Rabbits have different physiology. But I do like Baycox. Corid is another option. This is usually used to treat your chickens, It can be used in rabbits, but it's really hard on the gut, and they already have such delicate guts that I prefer Baycox. However, if you have no other option, Corid might be the right way to go. Be sure to follow the dosing instructions exactly as you're told. And yes, I'm rocking a bunny. He's a baby. He needs to be rocked. He needs to be rocked to sleep as he sits on me. He's very little. But follow the dosing instructions exactly, okay? And treat the whole litter or the whole group or whatever at once. Because if one has it, they all have it, even if one is more symptomatic than the rest. And this way you can take care of it in the entire group and not have it recurring for months and months and months. Treat the entire group. You will thank yourself later. And yes, some of the medications that you might be given for coccidia will be off-label. Okay, meaning they are not specifically listed to treat that condition. This is where having a rabbit-savvy vet comes in, because they'll know which medications can be used off-label for your particular problem. Okay, so follow up with your vet. Make sure you get the correct medication. And if you need to change medication midstreams, just do it. Okay, because sometimes that happens. Some meds work better than others on different rabbits. So alongside meds, you want to support their little tummies. What? I'm just shifting. You don't like that? I'm sorry. But you want to support their gut health. Remember, their tummies are delicate. So look for probiotics. Ask your vet which one they recommend. They'll probably have one that you can buy right at the office. And the probiotics will kind of help encourage hay consumption. Make sure you keep your rabbits where you're treating for coccidia warm, and you want to make sure that they stay hydrated. Provide plenty of clean water for them to drink, and you need to address hygiene, okay? Seriously, you need to keep your rabbits clean while you're treating for coccidia and afterwards. Disinfect everything, okay? Every single surface. You need to scrape down pens. You need to keep things incredibly clean, and you need to treat the ground. Again, talk to your vet. They will have different strains of coccidia, need slightly different treatments. So talk to your vet about what will work best to help eliminate the coccidia from the ground where it might be living, because the rabbits pooped it out. So now it's living in the ground. Talk to your vet. In our case, when we had it ripped through, we scraped everything right down, and we literally lit everything on fire. That was the recommendation for the particular strain we had, right? Look how cute this little guy is. He's so little. But we used fire, and it worked really well. But what will work well for you really depends on what strain you're dealing with, your environment, where you're at in your treatment protocol. So talk to your vet. They will have some suggestions for how you can keep everything clean, keep everything disinfected, and if you do raise colony style, to disinfect the ground. They'll have ideas. Now, coccidia can survive in the environment for literal weeks. That means you are going to have to clean your cages and your hutches and your pens like crazy, okay? I would ask your vet for a veterinary disinfectant. They have them. They can sell them to you. You want to remove all wet bedding and hay. Let everything dry completely between uses. You don't want to leave anything damp and mucky, okay? And rotate pens if you can. So if you have a pen that's had nobody in it for a while and you end up with coccidia, move everyone who's got coccidia to the fresh pen. And then leave that other pen fallow, treat the ground, rip it up, leave it for a few weeks. I keep hitting the mic because I'm petting you. Yeah, you're so cute. But you definitely need to make sure that your rabbits are not going to get reinfected in a few weeks, because then you're just starting all over again. Okay? And they are not immune to it just because they got sick before. They could get sick all over again, and it's such a pain in the butt. So 100% you need to make sure they don't get reinfected. Whatever that means, rotating pens, rotating cages, leaving pens and cages fallow for a few months, whatever you need to do in order not to reinfect your rabbits with coccidia. That's what you want to be doing. I know it sounds like a lot, but once you have that cleaning routine and you know what it takes to prevent coccidia. It's just one more part of the daily shuffle. It's not as big a deal as you might think it is. So it becomes like chasing goats out of the barn, like untangling goat leads, like hunting down your ducks before they go to bed because they haven't gone to bed yet. Hi, you might get kisses. Thank you. It just becomes another part of your daily life to keep those pens fairly clean. And if you've never had coccidia, it's probably not in your pens. The biggest risk then is introducing new rabbits. Okay? You definitely need to observe quarantine with all new rabbits. Make sure they're not carrying in something you don't want in your pens. Ah! Nibbling my ear. Now, prevention is always better than treatment. Okay? It's better to prevent an infection of coccidia in the first place than it is to have to treat it later. So keep litters and young rabbits in clean, dry pens. You don't want them walking around in the wet, mucky stuff. Don't overcrowd your hutches or your pens. Everyone needs room to move. Sanitize your water bottles and your dishes regularly so they're not harboring bacteria or parasites. And avoid letting rabbits graze where you know coccidia positive rabbits were there before. Okay? If that pen over there had coccidia positive rabbits, that pen needs to remain untouched or it needs to be raised so that that parasite's not in that ground anymore. Because what you don't want to do, what you seriously do not want to do, is end up with a bunch of rabbits reinfected with coccidia. Okay? And if you can, train your rabbits to poop in a litter box. It makes it much easier. I know that is not practical with colony style like our outdoor rabbits, but still. Okay? And they're still going to try and poop in their hay rack. But seriously, my indoor rabbits are potty trained for a reason. It makes it so much easier to clean up after them and keep things nice and clean. So to recap, coccidia is common, but it is treatable. Watch for the early signs, act fast, and keep everything as squeaky clean as you can possibly manage. You don't want to ignore it, but you need to take it seriously, okay? Don't ignore it, but don't panic. Take it seriously. Don't panic. Your rabbits will thank you if you are calm. Oops, I kicked the camera. But if you are calm and you approach the situation knowing that it is treatable as long as you act fast, okay? So just get a hold of your vet, get the medications you need, and administer those medications as directed. And yes, in most cases, you will have to get the medication from the vet. With a lot of the new regulations, it's no longer available over the counter in most areas. But that's why we establish a relationship with our vet before things go wrong. So we're not running in begging for medication from vets who don't know us and don't know our rabbits. So again, take the time, establish a relationship with your vet. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to deal with coccidia on your farm, or you have your own prevention tips to share. The more tips we share, the safer all our little bunnies will be. We'll see you tomorrow.